And good afternoon. Welcome into Market Talk on this Wednesday, February 23rd. Great to have you with us once again. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your middle of the week here, your Wednesday. We thank you so much for the time. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Find us online. MarketTalkAg.com is our home on the web. MarketTalkAg.com is where you could find us. All of our streaming sources are there. All of our links to social media, everything you can find at MarketTalkAg.com. Well, another wild market day today. A lot to discuss in these markets. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation, South American weather, just a lot of things that have been in this market for a while now, but still we're seeing a lot of bullish momentum to the upside. Let's talk about all of it. Let's bring in DuWayne Bosse with Bolt Marketing joining us here on this Wednesday afternoon. DuWayne, great to have you back on the show, sir. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to be back on. These markets are fun when it's all green on the screen anyway. So a lot to talk about.
Yeah, a lot to talk about today, DuWayne. And I think before we dive into any specific commodity today, a lot of people are talking, maybe getting caught up in, oh, where do you think the price of X or Y is going to go? But I think maybe it's more important to take a step back here and talk to our farmers and ranchers about just what they need to think about in volatile markets like this, these price levels we're seeing, new contract highs, and just the parabolic moves we're seeing to an extent in some of these markets. I mean, what do I need to do as a farmer? I think in baseball terms, rather than hitting a home run, is it singles and doubles here? And talk to me what you're thinking here.
There's a couple different ways to look at it. I'll be honest with you. A few of the hedgers, the true hedgers that we've got, I felt like I was kind of talking off cliffs and tall buildings today because, of course, they started to sell earlier, right? And this market's been ramping up and they already feel like they're wrong and on margin call. Well, you got to remember, the reason why they made those sales is because they looked at a spreadsheet and said, wow, look at these profits. I made a ton of money in 2021. Now I can make a lot of money on new crops. So they started making sales. Completely nothing wrong with that. But it's going to be a cash needy hedge market this year if you're going to be a hedger. What I mean is we might have a big spike up here during this run here, Russia, Ukraine, acreage planting, in the U.S. a battle there. It might be a very big bullish push. In the end, I'm probably a bigger bear than everybody. But right now, I'm still doing the hold and wait and recommending for most guys. So I guess what I'm going to tell guys is follow the trade action. Right now, the trade action is so bullish and it's a bullish close. So it tells me don't worry about anything today to let it go further. But, I say that, but if you're going to go with that type of a game plan and just sit and let the market continue to go, you got to really be in touch with your broker on a daily basis of, okay, when is the high? All of a sudden one day it's going to be down 25 cents and you're going to have to do the hardest thing in marketing and sell that down 25 day. And not everyone's geared up to do that. A lot of people are just want to do the scale up sales as we go up higher from here.
Well, looking at some of these commodities specifically and obviously tying it in with various factors in the market, I think Russia-Ukraine is at the top of everyone's mind. And it feels like that's impacting the wheat and corn markets the most, and especially Chicago, Kansas City wheat, although corn had a nice close as well after kind of just trading kind of firm today. It looked like it followed along there at the end. But before we get to corn, let's talk wheat. I mean, how much is this Russia-Ukraine situation fueling into this wheat market, especially Chicago, Kansas City? And I know as well we have drought issues in the southwestern plains.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I'd say 99% of this wheat rally is on the Russia-Ukraine situation. The other little bit, like you mentioned, we did have the winter wheat crop conditions report yesterday. Now, it's not really an official nationwide report yet. That'll come in the months ahead. But, Kansas, Texas, Colorado, all very low, good to excellent conditions. Kansas was down a little bit from last week. So that helped the Kansas City market here. But no, let's get back to what it really is rallying about. And it's the Ukraine situation, which may sound a little silly because I know we're the most expensive wheat in the world. Why do we have to rally? And that's a great point. We're not going to run out of wheat here, especially if we go up in prices. We're only going to lose more exports and then have the market tumble later. But for right now, there's just this uncertainty. And in a bullish market, uncertainty actually equals higher prices. So uncertainty, and we go higher. What it is people are just a little bit concerned if Russia continues to invade Ukraine. Does that Ukrainian farmer plant wheat next year? Or do they go, geez, I can't risk it. I don't even know if I'm going to own my own land at the end of the year. That's something in the U.S. we never have to deal with, right? Thank goodness, and hopefully we never do. So there is just this uncertainty. You take Russia and Ukraine together, that's about a third of the world's wheat. So at least exportable wheat. So it's a big deal. In 2014, when we had the same situation, we rallied about $2. So I'm not saying we're going to do that again here, because I feel like we rallied $1 on prep of this, but there could be more to come, Jesse.
There definitely could be more to come. Corn market as well being impacted with Russia, Ukraine. I mean, and I look at corn, and I know this is going to tie into the acreage battle and more, and we can get into that discussion and fertilizer here as well. But I mean, December corn new crop 6.11 and a quarter here today at the close. So I mean, we're talking $6 new crop corn. If you still have old crop corn, you're seeing really good levels as well. I mean, almost, we're pushing towards $7 on old crop corn. So, I mean, in this corn market, what are you thinking about for guys here? Do you feel like also corn is maybe a follower to wheat and soybeans right now?
It sure was today. Like you mentioned in the opening, it actually was kind of stagnant for a while. Wheat was gangbusters higher, so was soybeans, but corn finally kind of came through at the end here. I will say we hit a little bit of a resistance point that I've been marking as a bullish target of 683 on the continuous chart. There's a gap all the way from last year on that, and we traded through that today in the March contract. I always thought it would be the July contract that would do that, but here we are. This Ukraine situation has kind of pushed it. The corn market looks great, and if you sold your old crop, don't feel bad. It's a great price. I'm still holding on, believe it or not. But we just reached my target during the winter season where I'm giving presentations. I told everyone where to go to, and that 683 sounded kind of crazy at the time, and here we are, and now I'm holding. So maybe I'm doing a sin by not following the marketing plan. But again, the trade action just looks good. Now, Ukraine also has a lot of corn to export yet. They've actually already exported most of their wheat, so it might be more of a corn story here. And we buy a lot of fertilizer from Russia. So if we put sanctions on Russia and they say, okay, fine, you're not getting any fertilizer from us, well, that takes what's already a bullish, scary situation of logistics this spring and just might skyrocket this corn market going into the acreage battle of like, will we get the corn acres planted then? So uncertainty again equals higher prices in the corn market as well.
Well, and we talked the acreage battle and fertilizer, and I think before we get to soybeans, because we got a lot to unpack in that soy market as well. But I think about this acreage battle coming up here. We got the outlook forum tomorrow from USDA. That we'll start get a few ideas there, but I mean, mostly we're going to be talking, the next 30 to 60 days. We look at fertilizer prices. I heard from a lot of growers this week about it's changing every day whether we're going to plant corn, maybe more soybean acres. Will we take some wheat acres away and plant quarter beans? I mean, I think it probably all comes down to A, did you fall apply? B, did you have you already got your fertilizer in stock? Or C, are you still kind of leaving yourself open to where you can make a decision? What do you think about that? I know you're a farmer as well, not just a marketing guy. I mean, what do you think this acreage battle is going to look like the next 30 to 60 days, DuWayne?
I think you nailed it with it. It's changing day by day. And, I know you were in the Northern Plains recently, and that's really where it is the big question. And that's really where the acres swing anyway. I am hearing reports in Southern Minnesota and Iowa of a lot of guys actually thinking corn on corn, believe it or not. They see the $6 corn and they almost just don't care what the soybean price is. So that makes me think, oh, geez, come March 31st, when USDA has their planting intentions report, it's going to be a bearish number for corn. But it might be so bullish for beans or spring wheat that corn's market's not going to go down anyway. So it's going to be just a pretty epic battle for acreage. And like you said, it changes all the time. The fun part about being as far north as I am, right in Northeast South Dakota, I wait for the March 31st plant intentions report and then might change our acres a little bit, because if soybeans are going to take off, we'll plant more beans, but I talked about the Russian fertilizer thing and the fertilizer logistics. We've never really traded that before. And then you mix inflation here. That's why I don't mean to be bullish all the time. I know we'll do interviews later this year that you'll hear me switch and get very bearish, but it just equals so much uncertainty that I think we're going to see higher prices yet to make sure we get those acres. And once we get those acres, then if we end up with a perfect crop this year, we're talking a different tune come this fall.
Well, let's talk this soybean market. I know plenty to discuss there. A lot of South American weather concerns in this soybean market that I think we have to keep in mind. One has to wonder the way beans are going. I mean, are we going to break record highs? I mean, are we gonna shoot or contract high? I mean, where are we going to go with the soybean market? I guess is my thing. Are we talking $17 beans? Are we talking $20 beans? I mean, what's that number going to take for guys to say, okay, hey, I'm going to plant soybeans because this price is ridiculous? I mean, do you think we can get there?
I think we will get there, but like I said, it might be after March 31st. I think with the outlook forum that we're going to get released tomorrow from USDA, that's not going to be a bullish number there. I think, remember, that's set up for budgeting purposes, right, for the government. So I think they almost are going to look at the ending stock value, make it so that works, and then work their way backwards. And they're going to come up with this perfect acreage scenario where everyone's got just enough to get by. But you and I both know that probably isn't what happens come springtime. Yeah, 17, absolutely in sight, actually, for the soybean market. Now, we did hit a market there, too, of 1677 today, which is last year's high on the continuous chart. Closed right off of that today, but I think we're in this 3 days of fun buying, so I think we go through it tomorrow and then have our end-of-the-month pullback. But, I don't know how high is too high for soybeans, to be honest with you. I sold my old crop beans a couple of dollars ago, and I was patting myself on the back, Jesse, thinking I nailed the market. And the only reason I have some left is because the bin sweep broke. So thank goodness that broke, I guess, that I'll have some gambling bushels to sell later. I don't know if it's 18, if it's 20. Here's what I do know, though. We'll go through that point that you asked about where will we gain the acres. We'll go past that point, I bet, and we'll have more double crop beans than ever before. And we'll take some acres back away from corn after that March 31st number. And we will end up with enough bean acres, I think, in the end.
Well, and of course, what's helping fuel this South American weather and, the market seemingly ignoring the forecast for rain in parts of Argentina and southern Brazil over the next 7 to 10 days. I mean, we look at that, we just think about how dry it is in South America right now. And obviously watching export business remaining strong. China back again buying soybeans from the U.S. today. I mean, there's those factors as well that, on top of the geopolitical concerns that are really helping drive this soy market and, meal and oil as well. Meal very, very strong today. So, I mean, there's a lot of those factors weighing in here as well, DuWayne.
The weather thing is interesting. You're right. We came back this week with really bearish weather outlook. Argentina is seeing rains later this week and rains next week that'll actually shrink the dry area down to about a third. But that being said, that's like the forecast. I think the market already knows there's quite a bit of damage done. And some of the local scouts there in Argentina have said we would need rains every 2-3 days to really stabilize this moving forward because they have no subsoil anymore. So we still need to see some reductions from USDA on the South America crop size. And that's probably why the bean market is just so white hot and kind of ignored a better forecast for rain. Southern Brazil, where they're going to get more rain now, I think everyone kind of knows it's a little too late for that. So that's why this market just ignored the bearish weather forecast and just took off. And it's a lot of fun, but kind of to go back to your last question, I don't know if I answered that. I think we go through that price target that gets all those acres, and then we screw up and we ration demand, of course, and then we pull back later. Don't be worried about China not buying our old crop. They're going to buy enough new crop and use up the reserves that it makes you bullish for 2023 beans, actually. But I don't know. Whenever I get this bulled up about something, Jesse, we as farmers do an amazing thing, and we just go out and we produce a record crop and we go right back to where we were. So I kind of feel like we're due for a record crop this year.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with these grain markets, keeping a very close eye on things. And then obviously as farmers, with our marketing plan, you alluded to this earlier, just at least paying attention and staying in tune with what's going on in these markets, regardless of what happens, whether we find that black swan event that takes us down or whatever the case may be, DuWayne.
Right. Something's going to happen. Either you're going to do scale up sales like traditionally we do, right? Look at your spreadsheet and say, these are great profits and put those orders in place. or if you're going to just do this sit back because one crazy broker in Northeast South Dakota said he's bullish yet and not selling, you better be in touch with your broker every day on like, was that it then? Was that the high? And I don't know. We'll see come fall if I can brag and say that I actually sold it on the way back down, because that is very difficult to do. Every farmer does the same thing. Well, we're down 20 today. We rally back up. I'll sell it then, Jesse. And it's hard to do, but yeah, have a plan and revisit that plan quite often, I'd say.
Very, very true. Let's talk livestock here, DuWayne. This hog market, rough day today. Have we run out of this bullish momentum in hogs, or was this just a much needed correction?
I'm not going to sell the thing. I can tell you that much. I mean, I think it was a much needed correction is what it is. I missed the midday pork cutouts and the cash market. That cash market and the cutouts as well are both just on fire. And from what I see, slaughter is still pretty light. That should support the pork cutout moving forward. So I think this was just we've rallied so far. Maybe we take some profits here before we go into the end of the month. But there again, too, I mean, you're not going to know the top is in until you're about $10 off on something like this. We went over 120 in June hogs now, and I get it. China's prices are really low. Concerns me. Why do we have to be so high? But our inventory is just less than it was. We're 4% down from last year. A lot of barns are empty, some disease talk out there, inflation talk, obviously. So I wouldn't get in the way of that thing yet. And I'm not going to try to pick a top there.
I think that's a smart, wise move in this hog market. Looking over at cattle, a little bit lower today. I will say that cattle weakness today could have been worse with the rising grain prices. And looking out at feedlot country and looking for activity there for this week. What's your thoughts in this cattle market compared to the hog market?
I think we were due for a pullback here, more than even the hogs. I'd say that, fundamentals were just running out of steam a little bit. We had good cash last week. I know feedlots want 144, 145 this week, and I don't think they're going to get it. Had just a little bit of cash yesterday at 142, which is probably cleanup business from last week. But reason I say they're not going to get that higher cash this week is the cutouts have been drifting lower and lower, right? And now it's happened kind of surprisingly, but select cuts are trading higher than choice. That's not a bullish sign in this market, obviously. Now, we've done it before, and what happens is you just get good choice cuts just ground down for hamburger, believe it or not. But so, I mean, select demand is still good. That's good. People are buying hamburger, but yeah, they're not buying the higher cuts of meat. Not a good sign. I think packers are going to use that to their advantage to push prices down this week. And now the chart looks a little toppy, doesn't it, here? I'm not saying we've seen the highs in hogs or cattle. I'm sorry. Seasonally, we could put a high in here and go down in the spring, but the inflation thing is just a little too much for me to call that. But I think we're going to just reset the overbought position and then grind back higher up there, unless you're calling the top in hogs and that's happened. Then maybe the cattle have topped too.
Well, and you mentioned that choice select that spread, I think, even went negative here today. Right. I mean, and that we don't see that very often.
No, we don't see that in the bullish market usually. That's for sure. So yeah, that is cause for concern. And maybe I'm wrong by not saying the top is in, but we'll know in a couple weeks here. But yeah, be bearish in the short term. That's for sure.
Well, DuWayne, great stuff, and I appreciate you jumping on the show today. Any final thoughts you have for us, real quick?
I know I talk about just sitting and watching the trade action and waiting, for higher prices and that's good as long as the market's higher. But, if you're looking at your spreadsheets and you're happy to make sales here, give us, anyone else a call. There's risk management you can take to lock in these prices. And you may look smarter than me from just sitting here waiting for the highest price possible.
Well, DuWayne, if folks need a little advice, like you said, I know they can give you a call or they can find you online as well, can't they?
Yeah, they can call us here directly, 605-448-2365, or they can check us out online at boltmarketingllc.com.
DuWayne Bosse with Bolt Marketing. Appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us today on Market Talk, sir. We'll get you back on soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jesse.
DuWayne Bosse, our guest today with Bolt Marketing. That's going to do it for Market Talk here on this Wednesday, February 23rd. Find us online, markettalkag.com. I'm Jesse Allen. Have a great afternoon.